Okay, Chapter 6, Identity and Access Management. What we're going to cover today in this chapter is Introduction to Identity Access Management, Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting, Implementation of an IAM solution, User Access Control, Multi-Factor Authentication, which I think I talked about in so many different chapters, and Single Sign-On, SSL. All right, let's get into it. The introduction around identity access management. It's a framework in information security. The goal of it is to really ensure the right individuals have the access they need to do their jobs, in kind of in a short version of it. However, you can read through what I wrote here. And it's really at the right time for the right reasons. So the identity access management really involves management of user access, identity, permissions, and the process for how you're going to authenticate them and authorize them into your environment, into your network, into applications, etc. The core concept of identity access management is really encapsulated into the AA framework. Authentication is going to verify that user's identity, typically through a password, biometrics, or some level of multi-factor authentication. The authorization is going to determine what resources a user can access within the environment, the network, applications, and then what they could perform. The accounting logs and monitoring is really used for activities to detect response to security incidents. So that's why that last piece is important. It's really accountability of looking at logs and detecting and monitoring is going to give you a good sense for what and how those individuals are coming into the environment. A good example of this might be if you know you have employees in the Northeast, you don't have any employees in, let's say, Japan, you don't have any employees in Pakistan, but you notice there are individuals trying to log in from that location. You might say, okay, from the logs, we have a particular incident we need to deal with. That is just one example. Or if you know your staff works from 9 to 5, but you see logins that are later on, that's another example. So how do you implement this solution? Normally, you're going to use what we call an Active Directory. Think of it as basically a central house among other houses. You're going to go to the main house and say, okay, I need access to these 4 other houses, but you need permission. That central house is going to tell you, hey, you can gain access to this house, that other house, but you can't gain access to these other homes. And here's your path to do that. Now I'm using the house analogy, but really it's a directory that really stores information about what the user could do, their permission, and it has policies that's going to define the role and the access. Again, the goal is to ensure you only have the necessary people going into the environment and the right roles to do their job effectively. It's going to reduce the risk of unauthorized access, and it's going to enhance your compliance with security regulations. Very important to understand from that perspective. Okay? Now, building upon that, we have user access control. So the user access controls are a mechanism that manages how users interact with system resources. Now, these controls include what I described before as role-based access controls, where these permissions are assigned to a role rather than an individual. That way, if I have a role that could do update, delete, and print, I could assign everybody to that role. But I may have a role where no printing is allowed. All they could do is update and delete information, but they can't print it out. Then I may provide that role to other groups, so on and so forth. It's really an attribute based on access control. Again, it's going to really consider user attributes such as department, locations, as well as determining and making some access decisions. These control will help really enforce what I call the principle of least privileges. Again, some things I talked about before. Conceptually, exam related, just really remember these concepts. MFA, I think I talked about this many times in a different chapter. It's a multi-factor authentication, which really is an enhancement to security. It's going to require you as a user to provide 2 or more verifications. It's really something that you know, such as your password. So I use the bank analogy. Something you have, which is going to be your phone or some level of smart token. And in some cases, it might be biometric verification. It's a layered approach of verification. I haven't used biometric. I mean, I have, but it's really 2 levels. I'll put in my password. They'll ask me for they'll send an email to my smartphone, or I may have some token on my phone and it'll ask me for a code. I put that in and I'm able to gain access to. Biometric, I'm a security guy. I might say, well, more security is always great, but that could enhance user experience. And it's always, do you need that amount of security? One may argue yes, based on the continuous threats that keeps going on around breaches. So it's a layered approach. Again, the goal is to significantly reduce the risk around unauthorized access. Single sign-on. Single sign-on is pretty interesting. Before single sign-on, you used to have you used to have to sign into multiple systems at any given point. With single sign-on, it really becomes maybe the authoritative source of your sign-on. Once it's set up correctly using Federated or SAML 2.0 or 1, I think it's actually probably 2.0 or now, it allows me to sign in once, and then that is pushed out to all parts of the organization as it relates to the applications I need access to. It's really going to reduce what they call password fatigue. And at the end game of that, it's going to really eliminate the writing of passwords down, in my opinion, all over the place. So what I mean by fatigue, it's the likelihood of weak and reused passwords. Now you could set things up in Active Directory to combat that, but again, single sign-on really simplifies the experience, the user experience. You gain access once, and then there you are. You don't need to gain access again to anything from that perspective. So if we tying that back into the question or questionnaire for Chapter 6, again, what is the purpose of authentication methods in cybersecurity? The answer is authentication methods ensure that only authorized users can access sensitive information and resources. It's going to validate the identity of users trying to gain access to systems and data. List 3 common authentication methods used in cybersecurity. Password-based authentication, biometrics authentication, multi-factor authentication. There's maybe 1 or 2 others, but those are your core ones. Explain the difference between authorization and access control. Authorization is the process of determining whether a user has the right to access a particular resource or perform a specific action. Access control involves the methods used to enforce those authorized policies and manage user principles. What are identity management solutions and why are they important? Identity management solutions help the organization solve access to systems and data by ensuring that only authorized users can log in and perform actions within the network. They're important because they prevent unauthorized access and protect sensitive information from potential breaches. So let's look at glossary of terms. Again, familiarize yourself with these terms, understand the meaning, because again, when you get questions on a exam, they're going to talk about authentication, authorization. So it's important you understand, you know what they do. Access control, it's important you understand that. Multi-factor, identity management. I've covered these many times. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me at Dr. Paul Morrison at PKM Consultants.com. Thank you.